Recently, Jamaican music royalty Jimmy Cliff passed away at the age of 81 years old. Now, one of his songs, arguably one of the biggest songs of his career, I Can See Clearly Now, produced for the iconic Disney film Cool Runnings, was actually co-produced by veteran, legendary Jamaican music producer Clive Hunt. He joins me to discuss more. All right, Clive,
Um,
what's up? How are you doing?
hey, I'm good. I'm good. And you?
Fantastic as always.
All right, great.
All right, so this interview,
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many things we can talk to you about, but this interview is quite specific. It's not your first time, obviously, on the Trailblazers. We've had you like literally like a year ago where I had a full in-person interview with you. But this time, in light of Jimmy Cliff's recent passing, I
Mm.
wanted to get your reaction on a number of things. Before we head into that, though, how did you feel when you heard about his passing?
No, I was a bit, I was shaking. Oh, I was shaking. I must tell you, before the hurricane, two events happened around me and my community, and it shook me up. And then the hurricane, which was really bad. And after the hurricane passing, then this came. It was like another bad news, you know. So I remember when I heard, I kind of stayed in bed all day. I decided not to call any of Jimmy's family or associates or like his accountant. We do communicate every now and then. I wait a few days before I made some calls. What I was shaking, I must tell you, yes.
And I would imagine so. My condolences, by the way. Obviously, you would have known him and worked with him. And so my condolences.
Yeah, I'd say the same to everyone.
Yes, yes. All right, so the song I Can See Clearly Now, which is one of the reasons or the main reasons for this interview. From previously when I'd interviewed you, I got some background information and I got to understand that you were one of the co-producers of the song. Now, recently I saw a media article and they mentioned the other person, but I
Yeah,
didn't see them mention your name. And so for me, I thought it was important to get the
yeah.
history about that song, which of course that song is a cover, but arguably it's one of Jimmy Cliff's biggest hits.
I would say so.
hmm How did
Mhm.
you get involved in that project back then? And tell us how that journey went with you and Jimmy.
This music business is like that, and people omit you for whatever reasons, including people you work close with like this. So it's yeah, I'm used to that. It's okay. But anyway, when when Jimmy approached, when his office called me about working on that song, I was in the middle of producing an album for him. It was I think it was either the first or the second production I was doing with him. And from the first day we started to work, whatever, it was a sequence of events. I had just, the song Putting Up Resistance by Barry Salmon was a massive reggae hit. And I remember driving in New Kingston somewhere, and a car was driving wildly, up beside me. And I was like, say, who this, man? And then when I glanced over, it was Jimmy Cliff. And he was signaling for me to pull over. So I pull over and he said to me, he said, hey, Clive, you did put up resistance? And I said, yes. He said, listen, I'm on my way to the airport. I'd like to see you when I get back. I'll be back in 2 weeks. So I gave him a number, and 2 weeks exactly after he called me. When I had a meeting with him and his manager at his house, his manager, South African Rastaman. And I remember meeting him and he said he was doing an album and he was going to do 18 songs. But because he respect, Sly and Robbie was going to do 7, and then Tucker was going to produce 7. Computer Paul was going to produce 2, and he'd like me to do 2. But because he respected me, he liked to give me a choice of the first 2. So I said, I tell you what, Jimmy, we are at the breakfast meeting. I said, tell you what, I know for sure that Sly and Robbie can't produce everything, anything, and won't. right? Because they're beat produce. They produce beat first and then add. No, um, Andrew Tucker is very proper producer. I know. I'd say let Paul pick his first. Let Andel pick his first 7 tracks. Sly pick his first his tracks. Computer Paul pick his two. Any two which is left, which you want to be done, I'll produce it. I'll produce anything. And his manager get up and say, I like this guy. I like this guy. I say, yeah, I produce music, so whatever. So he said, okay, and it went just like that. Anyway, when I and him start working, I end up producing maybe 14 of the 18 songs. He did go ahead with the other producers, but he come back to me. So we were in the middle of this production and we had a vibes going on together. And I just went through something very personal and a very heavyweight thing, you know? So I was kind of getting myself realigned. Anyway, he called me, his office called me from overseas and said, Jimmy's coming and he'd like to do a song for Walt Disney. They didn't mention the other, like Sony and all of these things. And he needed me to come to the studio. He needed me to come to the studio, emergency. I can't recall right now if I was the one who booked the studio. Initially, it was at Mixing Lab. Anyway, he turned up, I think maybe the same evening, and they wanted to have it back by the next day. So when I went to the studio, he had Computer Paul was there. Now, Computer Paul was one of those early, that's why they call him Computer Paul, I assume. One man band. He just sit down with a keyboard and his machines and then ta 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 ta. Anyway, Paul played. I called Wayne Harmon to play guitars. So it was Computer Paul programming the drums, playing keyboards. Wayne came in to play the guitar. I remember when Wayne Harmon turned up, Jimmy called me one side and said, hey, Clive, what is Chalice doing here? So I said, Jimmy, that's not Chalice. That's Wayne Harmon from Chalice. And he's the guitarist on the session. But because Jimmy trusts me, that's much. He said, okay, okay. Anyway, it went on quite well up to a point, and then Jimmy left. Paul finished his part. Jimmy left. I called the backing vocals. The engineer was Fata Marshall, okay, from Fata Eyes Production. I called the backing vocals. I mean, later after Jimmy did the guide vocals, I think it was Pamela and Sharon Forrester, I think Nadine Sutherland, 3 of them I called. They came in later. Jimmy went home, and Jimmy and I had a routine that I'd wake him. They needed to think about the next morning. I tell him I'd wake him in the morning. I'd wake him, tell him what time to get up in enough time so his voice would be good. I remember calling his house about 1 a.m. and I told him I'd be needing him. He arrived in the street about 3 a.m. Okay, with some cane, about 7 long cane. And that's Jimmy's exercise. You know, he's peel the cane with his mouth and all of everything was ready. Anyway, he voiced a song. It took us a while. And that is, I did a little overdub myself on the keyboards. Okay. I want to explain this now because I've been asked this question quite a bit. Paul never seemed to explain it. I heard it so much times till the other day. A few months ago, I called Fata Marshall, which was the engineer on the session. I said, Paul, Fata, who produced I Can See Clearly Now? And he called me Zul. He said, no, you Zul? I say, no, it wasn't me, man. Me and Paul. He said, no, and Paul and Fata is very close. He said, no, it was you who produced it. Paul was playing. So I say, yes, but I have always credited produced by Clive Hunt and Computer Paul, right? Henton, always. Anyway, I called Wayne Harmon, who's living in Miami now. And I call Wayne and I say, Wayne, I say, well, I'm Zul. I say, who produced I Can See Clearly? He said, no, you, man. So I say, it's me and Paul. He said, yeah, Paul didn't play. Anyway, although I remember, as I say up to this minute, I say it's produced by 2 of us. What I remember, after Paul was gone, I did the backing vocals. Jimmy voiced it. I went to Tough Gang with Errol Brown, and Jimmy had to do a lot of voices. So we do a thing which we call comp. So there's like 10 voices. So we use the 10 voices, take a little bit from here and there and make it into one voice. Okay? That was it. I can't really recall how the mixing was finished, but I'll speak to Errol or Shane Brown sometimes soon to find out, because it bothers me whenever somebody say Paul, I never hear they say Paul, say Clive Hunt, but I say Paul, okay? I am getting royalties from Sony from then on to now, still, okay? And it is one of my proudest moments. moment in the business, because anywhere on the planet I go, and anyone will tell you, if you go to Russia, China, North Korea, Brazil, anywhere, they love Bob Marley so much on the road, on the street. But I'm telling you, on radio and national TV and television stations, here I can see clearly now 4 or 5 times per day in some major situation. So I'd say it's one of Jamaica's biggest songs since my time in the business till now.
Fantastic. And I mean, for example, for the younger generation like myself, like I didn't know growing up that that was a remake. It was a cover. It's
Yeah.
not, understanding that it was the original song was by an artist by the name of Johnny Nash. Is that correct?
Yes, and incidentally, I was on that session. Would you believe?
Really?
Yes, but
Wow.
and then too, there is a little mix-up about it. I don't, from a many years ago, I always tell people that Johnny Nash, this even before Jimmy Cliff did this version, I always tell people that it was done at Federal Records, which Federal is what is now Tough Gum. The same studio, just the Marleys got it and it became Tough Gum Studios. It still is. But and then one morning I was having breakfast at the Hilton Hotel before Harry J passed. And Harry J approached me and said, Clive, why you keep telling people that Johnny Nash recorded that song at Tough Gang? It was at Harry J. And I said, Harry J, it was at Federal, sorry. I said, Harry J, it was at Federal. I was there. Now, I started to even wonder myself. And I have to have a conversation with Frankie Campbell from Fab Five, because after musicians, the only person I remember being there, the guy who was the main producer, the lead producer on it was a blind guy, and he played keyboard then. Okay. Now at that time, Fab Five was Grub Cooper and his brother plus Frankie Campbell, Steve Golden, and guitar, and Junior, I can't remember his last name now. But I have been very close to those guys even before I went into a studio. In fact, they were the first people I followed into a studio. They had a studio off Eastwood Park Road, somewhere a street there on the left hand side above Hillview. Yes. Anyway, I don't remember Fab Five being the people, but I remember the producer was a keyboard player. I remember I played and he was a blind guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was on that session and it was Johnny Nash, and I was blown away by the vibes of the song. Because they were trying to capture a reggae song, but it wasn't done reggae. But in their estimation, it was reggae. Okay. So
Yeah.
there was some Johnny Nash was there with a few foreign musicians. So maybe since it's even much longer now, I can't really totally recall. But I was on the session when it was being done. Yes.
Fantastic. And so with Jimmy Cliff's remake, it was specifically for that famous Cool Runnings movie with the Jamaican bobsled team,
Well,
right?
let me tell you what Jimmy told me. Okay, I tell you, Jimmy and I was very close. Up to a couple years ago, I produced an album for him. It's not out as yet. Okay,
Oh,
I love working with Jimmy because he's a fantastic creative person. He's a different type of man. He's a cool man. He's very wide, okay, and deep. So, after the session, Jimmy, or during the session, sometime Jimmy told me that he was in Europe on a tour, and he got a call to record that song, and he fly from Italy to Los Angeles. He told me when he went there, because it was a Walt Disney thing, and then, as I said, Sony was the record company behind it. He told me when he flew to the session in LA, in the studio in LA, they had all these session musicians, and he went there with his backpack on, and he said he just stand up in a corner. Okay, he's like this. He just stand in a corner watching everybody, for a while. And he say the producer was busy setting up, and the engineers setting up mics and this. And every now and then the producer would pass him and say, "Hey Jimmy, you could relax." He say, "No, I'm good." And he say the last time the producer passed him and say, "Relax." He say, "Come here." He say, "I have a problem." And the producer said, "Whatever it is, this is Jimmy Cliff." And he says Disney, so they do anything for him. He said, "There is a man in Jamaica, I don't work without him, And the guy said, "Oh, okay. what do you want to do? We could send for him. And Jimmy say, oh, no, he's not going to come. And he say, oh, so what are we going to do? Jimmy say, I have to go to him. And that was me. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so Jimmy told them, and when I remember when we went in the studio that evening, they told me they needed to have the song back the next day.
Mhm.
Okay. So anyway, I wasn't even aware of the movie, and all I know it was another song, and it's also this. So I assume I know this was it's into record company. I assume it was for a soundtrack. This
Yes.
situation. I
Oh,
didn't get the details. I didn't care. I'm just there to make us produce a song, and I was working with Paul and Wayne Norman and Fata, and at Mixing Lab, my second home. So I was everything was cool.
wow. So it's not like a case where the team from Disney or Sony they had requested a certain sound.
No, not at all. No way. No
Mhm.
way. They
Oh,
just requested the song, and then when Computer Paul started to program the song, it was playing basically, except for the drum beat, which is kind of a different era, so it's a slightly hip hop type of beat. He was playing basically what was there before, and the original was just like that. But I had just done produced two songs co-produced with Andel Tucker, two songs with Jimmy for the movie called Speed 2 with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves. Okay?
wow.
Yes, we had just they had requested us to produce the two last song in the movie. The songs that are playing when the credits are running
Yes,
up
yes, yes.
on the screen. And those two songs were "Wonderful World," "Beautiful People," and "You Can Get It If You Really Want." So
What?
it was, yeah, so we did those for the movie. So when Jimmy said boom bam, and Jimmy and I had a good creative connection, and so it for me it was not no big thing. It was just another song, and with Jimmy, the big thing was working with Jimmy Cliff and working on that song at the moment.
Yes. But
Yes,
those
yes.
songs that you mentioned, those songs are big songs too. I mean, I'm not a singer, but Wonderful World or You Can, those are big songs.
Yeah, but to people like me, it's normal. In the studio, in the studio, get excited for a minute. I think you've seen us working in the studio. We
I
get
have.
excited for a minute, and then me like the others, but me being the lead producer every time, I'm like an actor. I just start to play a role.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
then I tell everyone, say, hey, this is where we're going. And I start to do this. I can just change my head anytime. And that's why with my musical skills, so that's how I do my thing. So to me, I don't make it be not a big thing, only a big thing for the moment to
Yes.
set the direction and make sure it's done and then deliver it. And hey guys, bye. Boom, that's it.
And that's why you are who you are, Clive. You're not too starstruck by things like that.
No, 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 no. I can't be. Whenever you're a producer, you have to take charge. You're paid, and your job is to take charge of the production. You have to manage it, everything from the timing to the feel to the whole vibe of the song to the budget. Everything you have to manage and deliver. Once you deliver it, that's it. So I look forward to getting the next work, completing that, and looking forward for the other ones down the road. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of I can see clearly now, did you have a specific vision in terms of the sound that you guys work to create to make it palatable for a Jamaican audience or a Jamaican sound, but also reaching an international audience because it was aimed for an international audience? How did you guys do that?
Well, there was no plan, I mean, there was no plan towards the direction. When we went into the studio and Paul with his keyboards and his drum machine and his contraption setting up, and as I say, he was basically playing back what was done already, what Johnny Nash did. If you listen to one and listen to the other, they're pretty close in the vibes. The only thing different about it is the genre, and at the time the beat was more like the beats that's going on. Like even now, you see the drum beat, the kind of I wouldn't say dance or it's kind of R&B hip hop type of thing with a little reggae overtone. You know what I'm saying? That was it. It was as simple as that. And even when when Paul started to play like that, I didn't object and say, no, no, not this way, that way. I was good with what he was doing. Because he was just playing, but he was producing, but meaningless. He was producing as a musician. He
Yeah.
wasn't producing and say, let's go from here, let's do this, let's change it, talking to engineer, do that. I was running around doing that. That's what I normally do. I am producing from the creative to the technical to all of these things. So he was playing and I was happy with it. This happens in a studio. Sometimes when me as a man and different producers produce, you might go in the studio and you have the greatest musicians or just some musicians, and you might have to lead them in a direction. Sometimes you go in and they are leading. So and the musicians who work with me, I try to work with a wide variety, but always the best, and always ones who deliver what I want. I would be in there and say, for example, the singer is in the studio with the musicians and he start to sing a song. I'm not involved as yet. I'm with the engineer running around and making some direction. I'm making a call. And they start playing the stuff without I say anything. If I like it, I maybe come off the phone and say, hey, hold that. I'll tell the engineer, hey, take a note of that. I like that vibes. I soon come. You know what I mean? I go, but then I walk in and say, yeah, I like it. I have a way to just stop and say, hey guys, this is a democratic production. I mean, everyone is free to come up with how they feel about it. I have the authority to say stop. No, totally not that we're going this way. But sometimes you turn up and it's going on, okay, good. And I'm good with that. It was like one of those productions. There was no brain strain. There was nothing. We went in the song, Jimmy was saying, I can sing it. And Paul was playing. And I said, nice. Hey, that was it.
Nice. And Jimmy's version of the song, I can see clearly now. At the time it went, I understand, like top 20 on the US Billboard charts and the US top 100 billboards, and
Yeah.
#1 in several countries around the world. When did you
Mm-hmm.
realize it became a global phenomenon? Phenomenon.
Well, I thought it went to number 16 or 18 on the Billboard Hot 100
Oh,
singles chart.
oh wow.
So that was fantastic. I felt good. And at the same, I told you, Jimmy was touring. I was producing a top French reggae artist. So, and I'd fly, the record companies would fly me here or there. So I'd be meeting Jimmy on the road. We'd fly past each other somewhere in the airports. I go to one of his concerts in Paris or somewhere where he's, hey, Clive, and I'll be there watching him perform some of the songs I've known him perform since I was a boy. You know what I mean? Or one or two of the songs that I produce. Well, Ice Sky Can See clearly was the most outstanding one. And I tell you, if everyone will tell you the truth, as I said before, it's one of the biggest reggae songs, a Jamaican song I have known. It doesn't matter by who. Come put everybody into the barrel, including Bob, Bob thing is big, what is big out there, but you don't hear Bob on national TV or national radios, network radios. Very, very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare. But you hear Jimmy Cliff when they're advertising the $1 billion yachts and all of these things with the
Yes.
billionaires and all of these things. Any language here, I can see clearly playing in the background.
That's
Any
true.
country, yes, it's a different level. So and I don't think only Jamaicans who go out there realize that. They don't say much about it, but I talk about it.
That's so true, Clive. And what was the
Mm.
reaction at the time in Jamaica to the song, especially with how big it became?
No, it wasn't the emphasis and the reaction was about the song. It was about the movie,
Oh,
and the movie was fantastic. I like it. You
yes,
know,
yes,
I
yes.
like it, and I've discovered so many things about the people. I think one of the guy one of the actors is a family member, distant family member of mine. The guy named Stokes. You know,
Oh, yes, Chris Stokes.
yes, I
Yes,
found
yes,
out. Yes,
yes.
because from my grandmother's side, because I have a man who works for me, and they are family, and we are family. And he told me, I was like, what? I never met him. And the emphasis and the hype was the movie, and it's a Jamaican movie. It's a Walt Disney movie about Jamaica and Jamaican with
Mhm.
a little bit of Jamaican music and Jamaican lingua and style. So that was the whole emphasis. The song was just a side show, but it brought the whole thing along. But because we made the song, and I am very interested in it, because I was involved in it. But what made me felt one of the things that really proud about it at that time was I remember going to Jimmy's office, maybe Jimmy's office on Union Road, maybe a year later, and I went into his office about another album he wanted me to produce, work on. I produced maybe 4 albums for him, with
Oh,
him.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so when I went into his office, I saw a gold disc, certified gold, from an album called The Best of Jimmy Cliff, and that was on it, and a couple more which I produced solely. So and I remember I said to his team, I say, where's my disc, man? I want to have one so my children and grandchildren can have, and them say, we don't know. You have to talk to Jimmy. When I asked Jimmy, excuse me, when I speak to Jimmy, he was saying the same thing, and I was like, wow. And then I went to a friend of mine in Paris office, and I saw it in his face. So I said, Bridget, what am to mine? I was there. What happened? I
Mhm.
never got that. So I was a little bit hurt, but I saw the credit, and it did say Clive Hunt and Computer Paul Henton. And when
Okay.
I went, and Sony Records still send me royalties. In fact, they were sending my royalties to Tough Gang for many, 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 many years. And I tried many years to change it from Tough Gang to my home address or my Linston post office. And I finally have it into my system, which it will always be coming there. So my but whether or not I had produced a song, even if I played the guitar, shake a tambourine or
Mhm.
something in the song, I'd be proud to talk about it like this, I was attached to it. You know
Yes,
what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes.
Yes,
And
yes,
I'm
yes, yes.
happy that it was, as you mentioned, you're getting your royalties. It's acknowledged in the credits. And the important thing is that the world, through this platform and through many other platforms, we get to know your side of the story.
Yes, and I must add this to it. Of all artists I've ever worked with, Jamaican artists, whether they're Jamaicans who live here or wherever, in the studio and working doing business. Jimmy Cliff is the one who treated. We have had ups and downs, and every time we work, we have ups and downs, and it's just never creative. It's on the creative aspect. It's on the business aspect. That's why I told you I produced 4 albums with him. I think maybe one, two alone was released because at the end of the day, we always have we go we have an argument that splits up, which is that's for a book or a movie. But Jimmy, anything Jimmy pays me like when Jimmy's Jimmy Cliff. He worked with major artists, major studios, major record company. He paid me like I'm a major producer, like he'd pay Quincy Jones or somebody. Would you believe he pays me that right in Jamaica here? He pays me the same you'd pay when he pay work with Cool and the Gang or when he work with any of the major producers in the world, and he paid me the producer fee and everything just like that. The best paid I've ever received is from Jimmy Cliff. Even the most recent thing which I did with him. And then the last album I did with him was the less I was compensated as an advance I have added. And when his accountant called me and told me that Jimmy would like to speak with me, well, it was his Dwight Richards, the trumpeter, who's his musical director, called me and said, Jimmy, you'd like to see me. We had a falling out for many years because of a disagreement of a project. Anyway, when I turn up there, we met and we talk a little. And he never talk business. Jimmy never talk business himself. His accountant, he said he'll talk to me, Mr. Sutherland. When he talked and he made me the offer for the fee, I said, that's less than half of what Jimmy normally pays me per song. And he say, well, the account is Jimmy's lawyer in Los Angeles says that's what I'm worth at this time. Some say, okay, cool. Let me tell you, when I recorded maybe 10 of the tracks and it was going so well, Jimmy called me from Miami and say, hey Clive, I want to apologize to you. I say, for what happened, Jimmy? What wrong? And say, the fee that my accountant and my lawyer offered you, it wasn't me. So I said, no, Jimmy, that's okay. He say, hold on. They say that's what you were valued at that time. And I was saying, no, no. But when they offered you, you say you take it. I want to apologize to you to let you know I wasn't undermining your talent or you in any way. I said, Jimmy, listen, you are Jimmy Cliff. And I would love to, even if I wasn't being paid $1, I would have turned up and worked with Jimmy Cliff. And him say, Ashe, I know you would say that. But he knows that I work for the music and I don't work for the fame or for the money. I work for the music, for reggae music, to big up reggae music and to big up everyone that's involved in reggae music, not the people on the periphery who was on the outside and wants to make a name for themselves. I don't have to do that. Okay, I'm saying I'm doing it for reggae, and for anything I do which is good for reggae is good for Jamaica and everyone who has anything to do with Jamaican music.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Clive, for your contribution to this and to so many others' lives in terms of the music that you have impacted. And it was a great conversation. We definitely have to talk some more, but this is where we
Enough
wrap it
respect.
up for now.
Enough respect. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank
Bless.
you.